Thank you for coming again tonight. As I talked about previous weeks, this semester is all about powerful women in the entertainment industry. Tonight's event, I would just want to dedicate it a little bit up front. There was a woman who passed away recently at the age of 92. Her name is Miriam Beanstalk. Probably never heard of her, probably don't know who she is. She was married to a publisher, but her first marriage was to a dentist. And when two Turkish brothers started a record company, they needed financing. And this dentist, doctor, has some money, put up the money, and started what was called National Records. And National Records morphed into what became Atlantic Records. And Miriam was married to this dentist, and she ran Atlantic Records for many years until she retired, and she passed away this week. So when you talk about women's role in the entertainment industry, here's a woman who's, you might say, an unsung hero who was very much involved, and without her there would have been no Atlantic Records as there is today. So as we continue through the semester, one of the areas I thought was important, obviously, is management. And I was trying to find a powerful woman in management, and I thought, and probably one of the more important, most successful commercial artists out there to date is Beyonce. And so I was fortunate enough, I was flipping through Billboard, and then I'm flipping through my electronic Rolodex, if you will, and I saw Leanne's name. I said, oh, I should call her and see if she'd do this. So our guest tonight, she's the general manager, Parkwood Entertainment, yep. And her name is Anne Callahan-Longo, L-O-N-G-O. Got that right?
Yes.
Pronunciation? And she's been kind enough to schlep out here to Wayne, New Jersey tonight, and grabbed her from her Midtown office and said, could you come out and talk to some students and tell them about the trials and tribulations of working in the entertainment industry. And so what I'd like to do while they're trying to figure out the audio side of things here, ironically, we're talking about audio, is Leanne has a very interesting background. She just didn't pop up one day and say, I'm going to be the general manager here. She started out with a pretty interesting career, and we were talking a little bit about it, and a lot of it I wasn't aware of, so I'm going to ask her if she could start things off this evening by sharing her experiences and how when you actually it started even before you were in college, your passion, and so maybe you could start off telling us what you did at the age of 11.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. Yeah, when we were talking, I said that I have a really vivid memory of the first time I ever thought that I might be interested in the music business. I always loved music. There was always music in the house. I'm the youngest of four, and by a long distance. So, you know, I had the benefit of a lot of siblings, you know, kind of introducing me to music very, very young. But I remember being on the beach at 11 years old in York Beach, Maine. And I used to rent fun floats there every summer as a job. But I remember having my transistor radio, and I used to bring it to the beach every day. And I remember that the moment that I always would be fascinated by the voices. You know, why did they have somebody somewhere talking at people? Why did they do events? And it really kind of crystallized the day that they were talking about a promotion and the radio station van went by. And it just really piqued my curiosity, and to a point where I still remember to this day that was kind of the moment I thought about, there must be a business behind this business. And radio, while I know I tune in to listen to the music, kind of just, you know, took me years later to figure out the actual business model of advertising and all of that. But I remember just kind of having that natural interest in it. So when I went off to college in Boston, I'm from Massachusetts, born, raised, went all the way from Dedham to Boston College, a whole 30 minutes away. But I started doing radio internships at WBCN and then at WBMX and KISS 108, and which actually the contacts made at my last internship led to my very first job out of college. and, took a job as a publicist because, the woman who was my mentor at the time in radio said, it's a great foundation for whatever you might do in life. And, as I said to Steve, I knew immediately I didn't love the job, but it very quickly taught me to be fearless, to pick up a phone, that at the worst thing that anybody can ever do, you can always ask any question, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say no. And, the sooner you kind of deal with that, anything is possible. But kept in touch with the contacts, which ultimately brought me back to working in radio. I worked in radio as a marketing director for 2 radio stations in Boston, WBMX and WEGQ, which was kind of a pop, adult-leaning station, and a classic rock station. And then after getting to know more people in the industry and in the label business, I was fortunate that at the time when the Atlantic representative was leaving, vacating a position as a New England regional, they asked me if I'd be interested in the job. Seemed like a good progression from radio. I was ready to kind of take a new adventure. And I said, that was probably one of my most favorite jobs ever in the music business. It was in the 90s, and we were successful in selling lots of records, and it was a really fun business, and I just enjoyed it so much, learning to kind of work with an artist hand in hand, and how, every radio spin and every opportunity could lead to a bigger piece of the story. And I was blessed to work with some really amazing artists. You all hear me okay? We good? Okay. Yeah, it's okay. I'm loud. I'll be So, and it was, again, just, being able to watch it start. Some artists, like, Matchbox 20, the first show I ever saw of them, they played in a club to maybe 400 people. And my very last show before I moved to New York to become a national, they performed at, an amphitheater in front of 20,000. And I just really enjoyed being part of that, being part of, making goals and dreams happen. And, I knew very early I did not want to be a performer. That was not, I signed up for the high school play, and I remember the moment that I had to step out on that stage and being absolutely terrified. I knew in that moment, ooh, I don't like all these eyes on me. So let me, find a different path in the business that's really more about the business. So after being a local, they moved me to New York to be a national. That time I did alternative rock and AAA promotion in national capacity. After that, I kind of got to the point where I felt like I'd done all I wanted to do in radio. It was time to look for a different path, a different adventure. And at that time, Sony had an opening to do video promotion and TV. So, while very much the same principles of promotion and all of that, it was an entirely different medium. So that was really amazing. And when I went over to Sony, that's when I was blessed to meet Matthew Knowles and Beyonce. So for 5 years, we kind of got to know each other in the capacity that I was always their representative if they were, doing a VMAs or a BET Awards or, anything on that level. And after a few rounds of, layoffs and years there, it was time to, my number was up. And I said to Steve, you never forget your first phone call and your first email. My first email was from Matthew Knowles with the simple message that as one door closes, another opens. And within a month's time, I had made a plan to go work for him, doing the day-to-day. It was at a time when Beyonce had moved to New York, and their operations were out of Houston. So they wanted to set up a shop here and kind of be able to service her, like more locally. It wasn't working. So got to set up an office and, kind of get off to the races of joining the management business, which is incredible. So three years ago, she and her dad, parted ways professionally, and she wanted to open her own company. She really wanted to kind of be a businesswoman and be a visionary in a business that, she loved, but wanted to be able to do things her own way, wanted to be able to create new, different, and, just kind of, if we can dream it, we can do it. So, and in 3 years, we've been really, really blessed to do some incredible things. And you know, it's really been an amazing experience to utilize all the tools that I kind of picked up along the way, and all the different jobs I did really prepared me for this. You know, I still learn something new all the time, but at the end of the day, I think having a diverse background in a lot of different facets has really served me well to kind of take it on and, you know, do the best I can.
I
in
like
it.
your diversity of your musical tastes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're certainly not a one-trick pony. I mean, I was reading, you talked about your love of Def Leppard and Barbra Streisand, and
That's right.
and you know, and you grew up on things like Jethro Tull and Led Zeppelin, and here you are, you know, working with arguably one of the most successful female contemporary artists. So it's interesting that you have that background, and here you are doing something totally different musically. So can you talk a little bit about the structure of the entertainment company? Because I noticed, just looking online, I mean, it's a small company, but it's not tiny.
Yeah, we have about 30 employees now.
Wow.
Which is really incredible. I can't believe, like, I look around and count, and it's like, wow, how did we grow to here? When we started it, we were maybe 8 of us getting on a train and let's go. And yeah, as we've filled in the gaps, we're a full service company. We do management, of course, but we also do music. We do a lot of video, a lot of content. That is really a big, interesting, you know, and I think very viable thing these days. You know, it's the old model of video is dead, but content is certainly important. In addition to, we do marketing, we do, you know, I mean, we basically are kind of, again, if we need it, we do it. And pretty much all of it in-house. We utilize our partnerships, you know, we're in a joint venture with Sony, but, you know, when you get to a certain level, you want to control what you do. And our last album, we had no other choice but to try to, you know, to really kind of do it on our own, as quietly as possible.
But back to the structure of the company just for a second. So in addition to serving as general manager and, you know, consultant, I guess that's the right word for Beyonce, I mean, you're managing 30 people.
Yeah.
So that's got to be a new experience for you as well, because in your past, you know, life, you were responsible for yourself and getting things done. But now
Absolutely.
you have 30 people. And so I would imagine on a day-to-day basis, one of the challenges for you is managing. I always find doing the job is almost easy compared to having to manage people.
100%. The hardest part of the job is managing the people. And it's always something different. And just when you think things are good and you've, you know, taken the time to try to figure it out and make everybody happy, something else happens. And I had, you know, a very, very successful business person tell me once, get over it, because it will eternally and always be the hardest part of operating any business is the people.
So, but I mean, your background, you didn't have to manage. I mean, so this is like on-the-job training for you, almost like
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. You know, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but cliches are true. Why they become cliches, I guess. You know, I really do learn something new every day. Big, small, and even to this point, you know, I have moments where I still have huge epiphanies of, wow, how did it take me this long to figure that out? But I also think that, you know, we work in a human business. It's a part that people forget, that artists are humans, they're people, they're deep feelers. You know, so your business can, you know, be whatever you know, model you want it to be, but it's always going to have to adapt and evolve to, you know, whatever they're feeling, whatever they're, you know, want to express, whatever they want to create. And then as you grow that too, you want to be able to kind of adapt to different scenarios for different people. Yep. And managing the people, you know, it's having that balance of creatives and structural. Like I feel like I'm on the creatives, you know, we seem to find them a little more easily. The structural people who can understand creativity and truly motivate creatives while still keeping them on course to deliver and and get something done on budget and on time is forever the challenge.
Always find artists, musicians, their brains almost work totally different than everyone else. And most of the people here play a musical instrument, so some of you probably can relate to that. But it just seems that the creative community has a different way of looking at things. And so you're like, have to balance these two areas because obviously Beyonce is a very, very creative person and she's a true artiste. And then you have, I'm sure there's a finance guy and somebody who does business affairs, and it's two very different worlds.
Absolutely.
So I haven't had the privilege of being in your office, but I understand hearsay that you have a sign in your office.
I do.
And it's almost, I suppose one could say it's your mantra. And at the risk of offending anybody here, I apologize, but it says, "Get done."
Yes, it does.
Okay, so that's your goal every day.
Every day.
And so
And forever. I mean, every day, every project, everything, because, that's the other thing when you work in an artistic environment. You can brainstorm, you can talk, things can evolve and change endlessly, but did you accomplish anything? Because at some point, if it doesn't progress, if it doesn't get done, you're going to overspend, you're going to not deliver, and you're going to turn your, you're going to let them, especially in an artist, you can watch them kind of, spin endlessly, especially if you really care about your art. It's your baby. And I think that most people, if they're honest, would, without a deadline, without a reason that it has to end, how do you ever think it's enough? How do you ever think it's good enough if you're in any way critical and, it's not healthy? And, as you said, the bottom line of it certainly isn't. Time is money, especially when you're making anything. And we work in an industry where, the old models of how you would, monetize and make back are gone. So you have to be able to kind of look for new opportunities and reinvent those things and maybe try to do better each time at managing, how you spend. And, and that's where, thank God, Beyonce also has a lot of, she's really good about wanting to learn, and always wanting to be a businesswoman behind her artistry. There are certain things that, she'll want what she wants when it comes to the artistic side, but she always tries to do it with a nod to, there comes a point where it's not smart business. And you do have to pay attention to that. We've all heard the horror stories of artists, you think they're hugely successful, yet they have nothing. So.
Throw out a couple of phrases and ask you to respond to them. One is hashtag old rules.
You want me to just respond to what you say?
Well, I think you have a philosophy that goes along with that, where the way you treat people.
Well,
I think you said, be nice to your intern.
Oh, yes.
Be nice
I
to the
believe you should be nice to everybody. I'd like people to be nice to me. And I also think that, I was really blessed to have a great mentor, very young, a woman who really embraced me, taught me that women should and can help each other. And, and that's true too. We fight for fewer jobs and, some of that has grown and changed, but, the music industry is still a very male-dominated business. So, but I believe that, you should help each other and have a good community, but also just in general, be nice to people. I really find that, we are a demanding crew when we wheel in for a Beyonce performance or anything that we do. We are very specific. We want it the way, that we take it very, very seriously. And I find that most people are happy to engage and help work with us because you're respectful and you're just nice, as opposed to, I could run and throw my, toys down and say, I want it this way or she won't go on. But, that's not fun for me. And I'd rather, I believe we get more because people want to help you. And, I also do like mantras, and mean people suck. So, and it's the world full of them. And, a lot of it is ego, or just because you feel, if you were, I don't know, bullied or whatever as a child, or, whatever your reason. At the end of the day, I'd like to think that what really matters is if you look yourself in the mirror, you're proud of you. So.
So, this semester is about the power and the powerful women in the entertainment industry, and certainly Beyonce would be at the top of the list, certainly. And she had that song, I guess it was back when she was with Destiny's Child, Independent Women.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about self-reliance. And so, as you referenced earlier, the reality of it is it's a male-dominated industry. And so, trying to steer clear of the cliches, trying to put this in proper context of how you as a woman found things along the way that were helpful to you because you were a woman, as opposed to some of the things that might have tripped you up, or in a male-dominated world, guys would expect you to behave differently, and like, oh, wow, she's that way. Because, you're a woman, you're running an organization for a woman, and it's, but obviously you're dealing and still with men in all different aspects. So I just wondered if there was anything that's come up, or your advice for any of the students here from a female perspective.
I guess, I've always found too that, it depends on the circumstance. Sometimes people are, they're a little taken aback. I'm very direct. I'm very honest. I'd rather hit, and don't get it wrong. Sometimes I got to take the breath and just, okay, spit it out, get it done, make the phone call, say what you need to say. But it's always worked really well for me to be direct, to head it off at the pass. We work in a business where a lot of times, you'll have people tell you what you want to hear to get what they want, and then it'll blow up into a big mess. And for the most part, you have to deal with each other on future projects, so you lose credibility, and you also, and again, I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather state what I want up front. And I think sometimes I would catch people by surprise that I'd come off like, fearless or whatever you want to call that. And like I said, trust me, oftentimes I was very, very nervous doing it. But I felt like if I'm not more assertive, if I don't work harder, if I don't give everything, I can do, then that's on me. And I'd rather get the ugly out of the way and the business pieces sorted, so that then we can just work it out. And again, back to my mentor, and she always taught me, it is super important to do what you say you're going to do. It is even more important to say what you can't do. And there's nothing wrong with saying that you don't know something. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I can't deliver on that for this reason. And I find that people have appreciated it. It has, all you have in this business is your word. And it comes down to it in many aspects. We work in a relationship business. So if you think about that at its core, it's a little messed up how the gaming that goes on. And so I guess, my advice is those two things. They've served me really well. Is definitely be clear. It's okay. People will appreciate you more, actually, if you're honest with what you can't do.
But I think what you're laying out are rules or scenarios that would apply both male and female. But I'm just curious if there's any advantage or disadvantage you find in the entertainment industry being a woman.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who you're dealing with. I've definitely, you'd like to think people, take you in, but, let's be real, they do. That's part of summing up who you are. And you're going to come into contact with people who are going to think you're weaker because you're a woman, or some are going to be more afraid of you. I've worked for some of the craziest, meanest men in the business, and I'll tell you one thing, that they usually didn't know how, they weren't as aggressive with women. So I think at certain companies, it was a blessing. I don't know, you remember Lou Cicarezza, right?
Sure.
His sole purpose at that company was to instill fear and discomfort and competition and all of that amongst the staff. But I'll tell you, an old Italian, like, he was not as comfortable. He would, I would hear every name in the book and be called out, all of that was part of it. But I got it far less than the guys did. Same with Don Einer. He didn't feel as comfortable yelling at the women, I guess, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But
so much for his machoism.
I don't know, but and again, don't get me wrong, it made me stronger, tougher to work for tough people. But I do think that there was a little bit of maybe, the dynamic that we're a little nicer. But on the other side, I do think that often, like, people would absolutely look at me and think, oh, girl, I wasn't going to be as sharp or as tough, as, again, tough, demanding, whatever word you want to call it, just being really assertive on behalf of whatever artist I was representing, doing my job. Did I answer it that time?
I think so. Let's talk about some of the things you've done. Beyonce has a clothing. Does she have a clothing relationship?
We just are actually embarking on a new partnership. It's a joint venture with Topshop.
Okay, so for those of us who don't know what Topshop is?
Topshop is probably one of the biggest retailers in the UK. They've just recently come to New York. They opened a store on, I see a lot of people shaking their heads. Yes, so yes, they're coming. But, overseas, they are hugely successful. It's kind of, I guess it's I don't know how I describe the clothing that they do. It's kind of, little, it's kind of H&M-ish in that, a lot of styles kind of cycle through, and it's very contemporary, but higher end quality. And, what happened was that Beyonce really wanted to, we had this idea to do a kind of an athletic line, kind of fashion and athletic wear, and everybody's into leggings and comfortable clothes and things of that nature, and it's what she wears every day. Topshop is a place she visited and would shop there quite a bit. So they were a natural entity to go into business with for a joint venture. And over the last few years, she's 17 years into the business, which is kind of amazing at 33 years old, which puts her in a, very different, very unique position. But we had kind of talked about it a few years ago that she is very blessed that she can do what she wants. And but also, what do you want to spend your time doing? You can, there comes a point where you should make a decision that what business, we can look at all these other opportunities that are coming our way, or we can decide where your true interests lie and go pursue those businesses. So we decided that endorsements were not something that she was interested in anymore. Why am I using my face, my brand, my, voice to sell someone else's products? I'd rather invest in me. I'd rather look for businesses that I enjoy doing, that feel, that are authentic to me, and let's go figure out how to do that. Let's go look for the things that, really are in the wheelhouse of how we want to spend our time.
So what will the Topshop deal be? I mean, will she have a line of clothing and a separate boutique within the Topshop?
Yes, there will be an actual line. It will be in every Topshop, and also within Nordstrom's, because Topshop has a shop and shop here too. So yeah, and it'll be all seasons. We too will now then have to have the responsibility once it's up and running of making sure that we, have enough product cycling through the pipeline to always, you hope that you create core items. Like, Topshop is known for their jeans and things like so, core products. So we hope to develop our core product for the line, and then we'll cycle through other fun, fashionable items.
And how will I know it's Beyonce? Will they, what kind of signage, or is she going to be, there'll be a photo of her wearing one of her outfits, or?
Not really. I mean, she is a partner in it, not to say never, but the goal is not necessarily, she's not the face of the brand. She's the creator of the brand. Like I said, doesn't mean that, we won't promote it and be very clear that this is the line we're launching. But this is more, her as, this is where she can exercise her creativity in the fashion space as a creator. She really is interested in clothing. And what's interesting about Bee is that you can kind of, she can, one day she will show up at the Met, gala in some fancy designer one of a kind, but she looks just as comfortable and you see her just as often in jeans and a t-shirt. And so, from a fashion standpoint, it seems to make sense. There's an authenticity that she can back up. We're going to create clothes that feel, kind of authentic to her person. Not that she, every item has to, she has to wear it, but it should feel like her. And, and I will obviously help promote it. We'll be very involved in the marketing of it, but it has to stand on its own as a brand.
So it's not like an ad in the papers where you'll see a picture of her wearing her clothing and say, the implication is like, this is what she wears and it's now available for you. That's not really what she's about at all. Right, so it's
No.
more.
And again, maybe we will. Maybe we haven't gotten to, we're not at the point where we have to launch. We're about a year away.
Oh, still. Okay.
Yeah. It takes, fashion business has a hugely long lead time.
Right.
So we are planning now for a launch next spring.
And then I think you were involved in, there was some venture she had with was it Pepsi?
Uh-huh.
So what was that?
That was a really interesting, that came out of the Super Bowl. We met around the time we were doing Super Bowl. And
Well, it's the Pepsi halftime show, right?
it was.
Right.
It was just changing too, from Bridgestone, I think, to Pepsi.
Oh, yeah, right, that's right.
That year. So it was a new year for them. They were a new sponsor to the NFL. We met them, and do you know Frank Cooper?
I don't.
He's awesome. If you ever, he's the head of marketing, CMO for Pepsi.
Okay.
And just really got along, and a lot of our initiatives were in line, and that was very much a very interesting adventure too, because she agreed to be in a commercial, but what was more important was creating like a content development fund to try to do more interesting things together. We produced and created the countdown spot that happened right before her performance in our office, so it was.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we kind of got together to do different things that were a little more about like engagement and a little more, they were kind of looking for different ideas, and we were clear, we knew they wanted her in a commercial, and yet we also knew that let's get together and do some things and utilize some funds for marketing that she could kind of create interesting ideas with, versus it all being about her face in an ad. It was a bigger kind of relationship.
So how did that work out? Because Pepsi is Pepsi, and Beyonce is always thinking outside the box.
It was. I think it was really good. We actually still have one thing that we have yet to. We worked on a film series together that we're still trying to kind of figure out how the last piece of it comes together. But we did it. It's an indie series, which was really exciting, and even though the deal is over, it was a 1-year thing. Like it was event. It was a partnership. So we're gonna finish it whenever we finish it, because it took that much time to do it right. And but Pepsi, they're a pretty free-thinking brand, and they like music. They're very much about being contemporary, being in the music space. So.
Any other things that you've worked on with her that have involved outside products?
Yeah, we have a few. She's an investor in a plant-based food line called 22 Days Nutrition, which is and it started with that was from her trainer, who was a vegan, and started got her to be a vegan for 22 days, and the whole ethos of the 22 days mantra is if it takes 21 days to make a habit, so on the 22nd day it should be part of your I guess everyday habit if you choose to do that. But she's also very clear in that she is not an ongoing vegan every day, but this is a business venture and something that she believes in. She feels better when she does 22 days of plant-based food, and then she'll go off it. Big believer in moderation, and you don't always have to do everything to the T. That wouldn't be believable. She's a girl from the South who
Right.
believes in moderation. You can have a little bit of everything. But that's a business that we're in now. Trying to think through. I've been through a lot of them. Of what? There's so many that we haven't announced yet.
Anyone's from the past, though.
Well, we just kind of, I mean, our company's only 3 years old. You know, I'm really proud of everything that we've done in 3 years, but we're only 3. Like, we're just learning to kind of get our feet. And like I said, we kind of had to let a lot of the, you know, old deals expire. So she's no longer the face of L'Oreal. So, you know, if we do something in the space of health and beauty, it'll be a joint venture, and we'll do it from a place that she feels, where there's a need, where there's an excitement, where we feel like we can fill a void. Children's space is something, you know, we're venturing into now. As a mom, it opened a whole new door of things that are interesting to her that just weren't before. You know, she had done like a, you know, voiceover for Wow Wow Whoopsie a few years ago, and honestly, she did that because, you know, her nephew was a huge fan. And so, you know, to this day, it's still one of the coolest things he thinks she's ever done. So, you know, that's a whole new endeavor for us going into, and, you know, it's fun. Like, we kind of like to get it all ready and not necessarily talk about it before we back it up and just do it.
Let's see. So she did something for what I guess an old fragrance for Tommy Hilfiger.
Oh yeah, back in the day, she was a true star. That was an endorsement deal, face of. We still have an ongoing relationship with Coty, but it's now, you know, after the Tommy Hilfiger expired, they did a deal to, you know, it's Beyonce parfums. So I think we're on our 4th pillar, and God knows how many flankers around the Heat fragrance, which has been very successful.
And she was involved. I think was it a shoe company? Was something House of Brands, House of Duran?
Oh, House of Darion.
Darion.
One time, she and her mother, you know, were in the fashion business. A few years ago, they sold it to Li and Feng.
Wow.
So they got out of the, you know, again, but that was really, you know, her mom was,
Right.
you know, back in the day, started, you know, made all their clothes for the girls back when they were Destiny's Child. It was a real family business. And, you know, they've always loved fashion. So it's always been a natural thing to progress into. So she did do that partnership with her mom for, God, like 6 or 8 years. But it was time for, you know, Miss Tina to kind of start to think about relaxing and enjoying her life a little bit.
Let's talk about the visuals. She's done, I mean, a myriad of videos, and we can talk about that for a sec, but I was thinking about some of the movies she's done.
Mm-hmm.
I think, obviously, Dreamgirls comes to mind.
Yep.
And the other one,
Austin
which I
Powers.
found, Austin Powers, I thought of Cadillac Records,
Yeah.
which to me was, so.
That's probably one of the roles she's most proud of. That was really an acting experience. You know, like when she really learned how to, you know, she worked incredibly well with Adrian Brody, who was really giving and really, you know, they really connected. He taught her a lot about acting and, you know, assuming a role and really becoming the character. And, you know, she really did her very best to become Etta James. And, you know, I wish it weren't a small indie film because, you know, I wish more people saw it. It was an incredible performance. And, you know, she's a good actor. Fortunately, she doesn't do it as much. You know, it usually requires a lot of time commitment, and it's hard. You know, we talk about it a lot, and there are opportunities, and I think you'll see her act again when the right project comes along.
Really?
We're producing some films, which is also exciting.
Wow. Yeah. Was it, I guess it was last quarter, last year, you guys decided to, in the tradition of Beyonce, is do something outside the box.
Yep.
And one morning, people woke up to find there was a new pieces of music, and visuals to coincide with that. But how, in an industry that's like made up of yentas, who everybody talks about, there's no secrets. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. She was able to produce and be in how many videos was it?
17.
This woman made 17 videos. A feat, you know, under the usual circumstances is pretty amazing, but the fact she did it and nobody knew about it, other than people who needed to be in the know, plus record an album that nobody knew, and then all of a sudden one day, you know, you open your email or go to iTunes and there's the opportunity to look at 17 videos and purchase a brand new album. And, you know, amazing, the distributor, Sony, was able to keep their mouth shut. And kudos to you guys for pulling off an amazing thing, which, as we discussed on the way here, while at the time it was unique and special and amazing, now everybody's sort of like, oh yeah, I think Drake just did it, right? He just dropped an album and, you know, oh, here it is, you know. Because it used to be, particularly in the world of urban and hip hop, and this is your expertise more so than mine, is you put out a single, and once it gets up enough momentum on the charts, then it's okay to release the album because there's a driver that people have heard that song and they might want to hear the other songs on the record. But in this case, excuse me, on the CD, in this case, it's like, here it is, boom. So you want to talk about a little behind the scenes, how you pulled off, I mean, other than, you know, U.S. Special Forces. I mean, that's one of the better kept secrets of in a while. So do you want to share?
Sure.
You want to
Be
share your
happy
secrets
to.
without disclosing any?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's no secret anymore. And, you know, keeping the secret was absolutely, like, I'm super proud of everybody. And
Yeah, you should be,
I
yeah.
think that, you know, it just goes to show
And no
you-
leaks.
No leaks. But, well, you know, let me start at the beginning then, because that was another one that came from a really authentic place. When we, you know, she had been recording her record for quite some time, even when we started talking about releasing it. And this was the album where she said, you know, she had come back after her pregnancy, and she really felt like, I want to work on this till it's done. I want this to be, you know, I don't want the pressures of a delivery date. And then, of course, you know, like I said, sometimes a little pressure to finish is good because it can grow and grow and grow. And she's one of those artists that she records anywhere between, you know, I don't know, 70 to 90 songs sometimes in an album cycle. I mean, and then it has to, yeah, it gets crazy. And then you got to hone it down. But it started with having a lot of dialogue about the frustration of leaks. And the fact that, you know, we work in an industry where, you know, you ship it off to the plant and then you pray. But you wait and you know, it's going to leak.
So you guys should understand, when an artist delivers a master, they're giving up their cherished piece of art to a third party with the hope that they respect it and will keep it under security. And what happens is, more often than not, over the years, we found that the leaks in the music industry usually come internally. It's some clerk, you know, there's a guy in the warehouse who's making minimum wage, and then somebody approaches him and says, hey, if you can get me a copy of that, I'll give you a couple $100 or whatever. Because, you know, when they ship physical goods from the pressing plant, because some of the bigger retailers like Target or Walmart, so they got to get it earlier. So back in the day, now it's Fridays, but it used to be Tuesdays, they'd probably have to get that in like the week before to then break it down and then ship it to all the individual stores. So you can imagine along that chain of production how many interruptions could possibly happen where some clerk making minimum wage like strips open a box, pulls out one CD, and then, you know, and throws it up on the internet. So, and that more often than not is the way those leaks happen. Or it could be, you know, it could be some less reputable person in the studio as they're mastering it or tweaking it, you know, taking an MP3, you know, a flash drive in their pocket. Anyway, it's somebody internally. So for her to be able to do all this, it sidestepped all those possible leaks is pretty phenomenal. Now, in this day and age where there's physical goods are lesser important, unfortunately, as we talked about. But I'm interrupting, you're telling the story, but I just wanted to explain to you guys that it's not an easy thing. I mean, it's just expected. I have a friend who runs piracy, overseeing that initiative at Universal, and he just says, you know, you just have to expect it's going to leak. Every record, every new artist of consequence that matters, it's going to leak. Most recently, there was the Madonna situation. So for her to pull this off is pretty amazing. So I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's okay. No, it's all true. So it started with conversations about that, and also the filter of modern day media. Everybody's a critic. Anybody with a computer can write what they want to say. And the bigger you are, the more people are going to be critical. And as an artist, she really felt she had this vision. Let me go back even one step further. She knew from day one, once she kind of put her mind around the concept of this album, few things. For the first time, I'm going to unshackle myself from expectation. I'm a grown woman. I'm 30 years old at the time. I've had a child. I'm married. I don't want to be concerned with what'll somebody think if I say a curse word. What if, do I have to think about a 6-year-old, like I'm going to make a grown-up record, and I'm going to not care. I would just want to let the art flow through me. I want to speak from who I am today in all facets of that. And I want to have a video for every song. So, of course, the first thing that goes off, we could spend hours and hours talking about the finances of how expensive that is. Trust me when I tell you, not many artists could have done this. We just, so it was I have a vision. Here's what I want to do. And I don't want it to leak, and I want no filter. It'd be really great if we could find out, how do we just give it to the fans? How do we, how do we figure it out? There's got to be a way. And that's kind of where we started, sitting in a room, talking about these ideas. I did say, you're crazy. This is like, oh my God, like the yeesh, like getting the label to go along with it, because.
Oh, that had to be fun.
Yeah, I got to tell you though, I give Rob Stringer major props. His first reaction was like, are you f***ing kidding me? And then, but within 48 hours, he called me back and he said, I'm in. But the secret was everything. We were putting all our eggs in one basket, and our one basket was the surprise. Our one basket was, she has got really, really wonderful fans. How about we let them talk about it? How we let them be excited to discover it? How about if we do this right, they'll actually want to enjoy it as a body of work? Let's see if that can be, important again. Let's see if anybody would care if they had the choice to, consume it as an album, and then, like you said, having the visuals too, it was really exciting. And, we looked at every side of it. We talked about what could go wrong. This could all be a hot mess if the secrets, we're screwed, all of that. But the risk, it felt right. And she was one of a few artists that could probably get away with doing that. She had, at this point in her career, and it seemed exciting. Again, I said to you before, like, we kind of have another, rule. If it's been done before, we're really not interested. Like, what's exciting, that you can look at this business and you can complain about what's not the same, or you can look at opportunity and think that now's the time you can try anything. What's the worst that's going to happen? It doesn't work out. Okay, oops, you learn from it, do it different the next time. There's far less, at least you tried something different. So, we tried to do some safe projections of what we thought, and we also tried to, figure out, like, there's a whole lot of finger crossing. And honestly, we sat in the office the night we launched it. It's really funny to hear you say Friday. I didn't know, is that really a new day? Because we dropped it a Thursday at midnight.
Well, I think it made people rethink stuff.
Yeah. Well, that was the other part, because we had, there was a minute when they were like, okay, well, we have to have it by mind. And then we said, but, if they don't know it's coming, and it really doesn't matter, why does it have to be Tuesday?
Well, because if the record company mentality is Beyonce album is a major event, and if you put it out Friday, you're going to lose sales from Wednesday and Thursday.
Right.
And oops, we're not going to have a great chart debut. And oh my God, that's going to be.
And we knew that too. We knew that with this, that we were probably not going to come in at number one. And oh my God, the horror. So what? Like at some point you got to say, but let's look at, again, it's back to. Maybe we will. It depends on how excited it is, but you got to be willing to say, does it really matter? At some point, one more chart position, one more whatever, is that the most important thing? And the Thursday at midnight release seemed more exciting from an event standpoint.
What did you do internationally? How did you handle that?
Well, we went global. Well, that was when, like I said, we kind of had the framework of what we wanted to do. Then it was our challenge to go find the partners who could actually make this happen. So at the time, Apple was really iTunes was the only consideration that could be global. But boy, was it a quick education in the fact that they are not as meaningful, in some countries
Right.
as others. But you have choices to make. They were absolutely the right partner.
Well, you learned.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And, but they too, what we knew is in their ethos, they were very good at keeping secrets too. They understood that, and I think that the secret thing was really fascinating. Like we only told someone if you needed to know, you knew. But you were also told, like if this blows up, we've blown it all. So what's more important, your ego to say or the good of the project? And being proud of working on a team, doing something
it's amazing.
different.
It's just amazing globally you're able, because another way the leaks happen is one of the territories isn't paying attention and they give it to iTunes or something the night before they're supposed to, and then... Yeah.
We literally we watched it upload to the, like it had to ingest through,
Right.
whatever they ingested Sony. But I literally started, because the other thing is we are not pushing the live button till we know it works, which means that it was actually live for an hour without, it was open. If you have, and somebody in, I think it was Manchester, England, actually happened to Google at that moment, put in their browser, www.itunes.com/Beyonce. At the hour it was,
How
and
random.
he wrote, and he was the very, very first, I think it was a tweet. Rob Stringer actually seeked him out. He wanted to bring him to America. And to the thing, because it was so hilarious. He just put a boom, and he posted the album before we actually made the announcement. So there was a little, but that was the one guy. But that was the other thing. You can't, the pressure, you could not work.
Right.
God forbid, that would be worse. We don't go if it doesn't work. So we sat in the office, we downloaded it, we made sure it worked, and then it was like, okay. But we also did not give it to the plant. And trust me, we had every conversation of, please, we started 3 days in advance, we'll hire security, everybody will sign an NDA, we'll confiscate phones. No. We were
So
absolutely, physical was delivered the day, that day we launched.
So
They were not allowed to go in, and we had to make a fast plan to get it. We had a week. It took a week between
to get the physical out.
Yeah, to get it manufactured and delivered.
So so two things. One, what does Amazon say to you? Because you
They're
gave it to
mad.
iTunes, so they're mad. Okay, so they're upset. Oh well. And then what do you do about all the retailers?
They're mad.
They're mad too.
But we tried to, we discussed it all. We knew who was going to be mad. Everybody was up at midnight that Thursday night with their call list. Call your, biggest contact, get them on the phone as quickly as you can and hope that they will understand. And again, we were
So
standing behind.
you called those people and said, hey, just a heads up, here's what's going down. You're going to get it in a week, but just wanted you to know.
It's up. It's out. We couldn't even trust a day, or you couldn't.
No, I know.
But
and that had to be a fun call for the salesperson.
It wasn't fun.
To go,
Poor Darren Stupak, yes. The head of sales at Sony. I mean, he and Steve Kennedy, they had the worst jobs of trying to, having to go through that, because I'm sure it was awful.
And were there some retailers who dug their feet in and said, we're not going to carry this record?
Well, yes, it was quite public. The Target chose not to. Well, it's interesting because, Walmart, while not happy, typically the biggest, always historically the biggest seller of Beyonce music. That's where our core fan lived, shopped. But we went to them with, this is why we did this. It was about the leaks. It was about being innovative. It was about trying something new. But hey, we appreciate you, and we'd like to, do something with you a week. Yes, it'll be a week into it, but that's the other thing. Everybody gets so caught up on day one. When, you like to think you have an album cycle and you like to have waves of different things. So luckily we were able to, cook up a plan with Walmart. We said, we're open. What do you want to do? And
Give them some extra bonus tracks. Is that it?
No. No, there was one piece of product, period, for everybody, whether it was digital or physical. And but she agreed that we did an in-store appearance because she was on tour at the time. And she went in, it was Christmas. We did a surprise appearance in a Tewksbury, Massachusetts Walmart, where she walked in, grabbed a cart, and started handing out gift cards to people. So we were able to stay for about 45 minutes before it got a little crazy.
Where's Tewksbury?
Tewksbury is, I think it's outside of Boston, about 30 miles.
So
And she was playing Boston that
So
night.
it's suburb.
Yeah. It was a suburban
So I happen to be
store.
in Tewksbury Walmart, and all of a sudden,
Yes.
this attractive woman walks in with a shopping cart and starts giving me gift cards.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'd be pretty happy
It
if I was
wasn't bad.
Mr. Walmart.
Yeah. So they agreed to take the record. We did the promotion. We offered Target, to do something. They weren't interested.
So if
They
I go to Target
chose-
today, will they have the
now
album?
you can, but
Of-
it took
of-
almost a year.
Not that they sell a lot of catalog, but
Yeah, I think when we launched the deluxe, they finally took it. But but what's interesting is not having Target. Starbucks saw an opportunity.
oh yeah.
At the time, they were carrying very few selections, but we have a nice relationship with them, and Howard read that, Target wasn't taking it. So they masterminded this plan to have us, we shipped 65,000 albums into every Starbucks within 48 hours of release, which made everybody mad because you know how the business works. Typically for Starbucks, I don't know what the lead time is,
Right.
but it's 10 weeks long. It's long. So they were like, what do you mean they could put a record in stores in 2 days if they want to?
Wow.
But they wanted to. And it was an opportunity for them to kind of, and honestly, to this day, it was, Target was quoted as saying, it messes, if it's released digitally, it messes with your projections, but you weren't projected. It didn't exist.
Right.
And again, but the opportunity at Target was, at Starbucks was great.
And I'll bet the Sony sales staff got an education
Oh, yeah.
on a number of levels.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't easy. And like I said, I think that they could be tortured, they had other artists to consider. Bigger relationship. For us, it's just us. And,
Right.
you
So,
know, they could
obvious-
hide behind it. It was absolutely what her idea. But
So obviously the next release she has will not be handled that way because done that, been there, and we got to come up with something new.
probably.
So,
yeah.
so your challenge next time she is in the studio and delivers what was called an album. Okay, so now what are we doing, Leanne?
And we'll try to think about, maybe a different,
So if any of
slightly
you guys
different
have some
way
really
of doing it.
interesting ideas after class, you could whisper it to her
Yes,
in her ear.
please.
Because you can imagine that moment when somebody walks in with a finished project and goes, "Okay, what are we doing?"
Yeah,
So I'm sure she'd be open.
I would absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So your background, when you were at Sony, you were doing visual videos, servicing MTV, BET, CMT, and whatnot. So you know what it's like to crank out one video from a production point of view. So can you explain how you do 17 videos? I mean, what was the lead time to do 17 videos?
Well, it's funny. We did, God, most of it was done between, I think we really kicked in August to December. And she was on tour.
And he kept
So
everybody's mouth was kept shut
Yep.
about that.
We basically, we were hiding in plain sight in many ways. We go back, there's pictures often taken, and we would do a pickup on a street in Australia, a pickup shoot real quick for one shoot for the No Angel video, and it got picked up in the press as she's doing a photo shoot. No one paid attention. Everybody just thought, oh, Beyonce's doing a photo shoot. She's on tour, whatever. At one point, we had like every post house in New York working. We still can't believe they don't talk to each other. And again, if you really, enlist people to be in it with you and you tell them how important it is not to give up, keep the surprise so the art can be unfolded, and released the way you want it to be. Each person, they fell in line, but we told none of them how it all connected.
And Sony didn't know you were doing this either at the time.
I'm trying to think how far in advance. I think by then Rob knew. I don't know how many, it stayed pretty tight in a very, there were maybe 4 to 6 people at Sony that knew for the most part until they had to go wider.
So you started shooting videos back in August for a December release, right?
Yes, and it was hard because again, she was on tour, so we were working pretty much every off day, every in between, sometimes before a show. Definitely the breaks, we were really full out. Yeah, and it came down, poor Jonas Aquila, he just thought we were crazy. The last two videos we shot were Superpower and Haunted. And he kept saying, but I need a few more days. And I'm like, I can't give it to you, Jonas. And he was like, what the hell? You don't even have a, you don't even have a, like, what? I'm like, I can't give it to you. I need you to finish. Look, I know this is terrible. I know it's the holiday. I know all of this. I know we're pushing everybody to their limits, but I can't give you a day past this date, and it was pretty much, wasn't long, because I mean, a good thing was we were doing a digital adjustment, delivery first. But it still meant we still had to have it. Everything had to test.
Sure.
Everything had to be QC'd. So it's still a few days in advance to do all that before we actually, but it was days. So we really pushed it right up to the boundary of the end. We shot the last video in the freezing cold streets of New York in the middle of the night. I was calling my little cousin at home, like, what do you guys do? Were you home? It was 11 o'clock. I need you and your friends to come out and be extras. And we shot it like on St. Mark Street. Were you there? You're shaking your head. Yeah. Jealous. Yeah. So, but I mean, it came down to that. Sometimes we were like literally calling our, family and friends, like, "Hey, come, want to come be in a video?" So it was really fun, but it was as crazy and manic and exhausting as it was. It was exciting. We felt like we were part of something, and we had a mission, and
So when you worked at Sony doing video promotion, you were working with a lot of artists, established and baby bands. So just to give people a perspective, with a baby artist who's going to get a minimal video budget, what would a starting budget be for an unknown band that, first shot, that they need something that they can get out there on YouTube and possibly one of the video channels? What would a fair budget be?
Today?
No.
Or then? I mean,
Well,
back then, videos were still big.
Right.
Now they're, it's funny because I believe today videos are probably more important than ever. Again, content, consumption. We live in a very visual world. Yet, when you can't monetize it like you used to, it's like, it's strange. But I don't know, $25,000 maybe?
Right.
You think that sound about right for that time and a baby band?
Right.
Maybe 50 if they were
maybe.
really.
Yeah, and then today, well, I bet it's less because the technology, you can shoot it. Yeah. Well, people are shooting videos on iPhones.
I hear rumors and rumblings that people make videos for $5 or $10 grand.
Right.
God bless them.
Right.
That'd be amazing. But we are ever on the quest to learn how to do it better, cheaper.
So understand, when Beyonce does a video, it's not $25,000.
It's not $25,000. I wish. It's my.
I mean, she's got, she's got to be camera ready.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that involves a whole other level of things that, that go above and beyond the production costs of shooting a video and editing it and cleaning it up in post and all that. So just so you have a perspective, 17 videos is not this week's. No, it's not. No, it's not an expensive situation. You're
investing in you definitely. It's an investment. But worth it. I stand by. I think it's her finest work. I think that she really gave it her heart and soul. And videos is something she's always been interested in. Like it's always, even back, when she first started making videos in the Destiny's Child days and Crazy in Love. And she's always really enjoyed it as a medium. And it really is, when she records, she sees a visual, and that was part of it really fun. Like I would wake up 3 a.m, I'd be getting emails from her with treatment ideas for videos for this record. Like it was the craziest thing. And, here's a thought.
So you said in your mind, videos are even more important today. So that's the visual aspect. So talk to me about what your feelings are as to the importance of television. That is conventional television that we watch on the cable, or because, as a manager and your experience prior to working with Beyonce, so you have, the Today Show, Good Morning America, and you have Saturday Night Live, and you have some of the local shows, Good Morning Boston, Good Morning New York, and, the late night talk shows with Jimmy Fallon just kicking everybody's butt. And I'm just wondering, what do you think an artist, whether it's Beyonce or someone else, the value of going on those TV shows, either to perform or just to be interviewed?
I think it depends on the artist. I think for Beyonce, it doesn't make sense anymore. It's too expensive. And I'm not sure, we're also in the situation, if we do something for somebody, everybody else is mad. Like it's not, there's really no win. You want to do, you want to do things that are bigger and more far-reaching. And I think there's, other mediums to get there now. And I love TV. I mean, I'm TV, that's how kind of I unwind. I love to watch television. But I think that we have to surrender to that industry too is shifting. I was telling Steve on the way here, my 81-year-old mother has got Netflix now and has discovered binge watching to the point where she tells me she's not going to watch something now. She's going to wait till they finish the season so they post it all, because she doesn't like this week-to-week thing, having to wait. So I think that, you can buck the system and you can, or you can try to find a new way, because it's definitely shifting. I think if you're a young band and you can do it inexpensively, I think TV is probably still a great medium for introduction, repetition, seeing different sides, learning to get to know an artist. There's some basics in there that, it's a far-reaching, so then I would say if you can get in a van and you can do it low budget, then sure, go from everything from Good Morning Boston to Jimmy Fallon, you hope. But if you're
they move the needle?
I just don't think, I don't see how it is. You got to think a little bigger. Is what we do on TV going to be impactful? But we always look now at TV performances and appearances beyond, used to be that when you considered an award show, you want to be 1 hour in because that's the highest rated quarter hour, and things like that were a factor. Now, maybe you want to consider being the opening or the closing because it's more of a moment, and who God knows how many multiples more people are going to see it online. There's a whole second window life to it if it's a TV performance that, you no longer or you have to be as concerned about the moment you're on and the ratings you're on. But, is it interesting and will people care to go watch it?
Will it move the needle?
It depends on what it is. I think that if you're inventive in it, like I think our VMA performance was definitely impactful.
Well, I'm not talking specials. I'm just talking about the typical shows that the publicists work, whether it's the Today Show or Saturday Night Live.
It's been so long since we've done one. I honestly don't know. For us, if it would, I don't know. And I've yet to see a story where I'm hearing something breaks out of a TV show. But I also see Jimmy Fallon doing interesting things like putting people on multiple nights. Sure. I think if the press is, interested in it because it's new, it's different, I think it can. TV still reaches a whole lot of eyeballs. So, if what you do really touches people and they feel like they want to share that with their friends, because that's the other thing, we live in a world where, I don't know how, I'd be curious how many of you all, go try out new music based on something that's been advertised or that you heard on the radio versus hearing it from your friends. Is it, do you check something out because you've heard an ad? Anybody?
So how many of you would?
Sometimes. If you like it. Do you check it out if you've heard it on the radio? Do you check it out if your friend tells you this is really cool, you should check it out? So.
Okay, so let's put our future glasses on for a second. Parkwood handles Beyonce. So, company supporting her creative output. Will there be other things coming from Parkwood, from other, will Beyonce find something and get excited and bring it to you and say, do this? Or will you find something, you get excited and go, hey, maybe we can do something with this? So will there be other things, you think, in the future?
I think so.
So Parkwood could, so we shouldn't be surprised if Parkwood winds up with some other artists.
No, I think we should. I think she's got a lot to share and give, and she's, she's a very giving person for one. Again, 17 years of a career. she's been through it all. You know, she's stepped in every hole. She's, you know, good, bad, indifferent. It's great experience. And, you know, I think her legacy, she'd like to share that with others. And I think that we are valuable to be able to help, you know, a new artist go out and, you know, find their dreams.
Cool. All right, so talk about dreams. We have some questions from some of the participants here this evening. And I use the word participant because she and I are sitting here talking, and you guys can certainly feel free to jump in, raise your hand if you have a question or something. But I wanted to start off, I love this question from Gerbert Martinez. Says, if you could go back to the younger you, what advice would you give yourself?
Where are you? Hey, good question. I would tell myself that you can do anything you want if you follow a few simple rules. If you can see it and you can vision it and you can actually find a path, you can absolutely accomplish anything. And you know, and I mean that. I've seen it. You know, we've done it. And I wish I believed more in that myself when I was younger. That and be nice to people.
Okay, Amanda says, or asks the question, what is the hardest part about working with an artist of such high stature? And what's the best part?
The hardest part is not letting the hate and the mean and all that, you know, and get to you. And the stress and frustration of you can't please everybody, no matter how hard you try. And you can set your mind on this is what we're doing, and it'll be misunderstood and misconstrued, and you can't let that get to you. It's upsetting, you know, it's personal. I care about her, and it makes me so mad when I see things that are just blatantly untrue, you know, categorically stupid, and yet you watch everybody read it as if it's fact, and that's super frustrating. The greatest thing is the gift of honestly, like the giving, like to be able to see music and an artist really touch a life, really make a difference in somebody's life, and it's not something that everybody gets to see and participate in, and it's pretty awesome. You know, and I can't tell you how many times I've thanked her for the opportunity to just be able to do some of the shit I get to do because I work for her. And, you know, and I'm lucky. She's brave. She's brassy, and she believes in herself and believes in us as, you know, being able to get it done. And that's, you know, we work in a business where there's a lot of, you know, anxiety. There's a lot of second guessing. There's no science to it. At some point, you know, there's no roadmap. I wish there was a blueprint. You could roll it out and say, this is what you do. But so much of it, you have to trust that your instincts are right and that you've prepared the best you can. But, you know, more often than not, you just got to decide, you know, okay, well, let's just hold hands and jump and hope that everything that we planned for works. But
Question from Melanie, and what were some of the unseen challenges you faced while producing Beyonce's On the Run tour?
Ooh, that was a tough one because we didn't have a lot of time. We put together a stadium tour in 4 months, which is, file that under never again. You know, I mean, honestly, please know it's a lot, you know, to get it, you know, get the locations. The routing was super challenging because we were late, you know, things were booked. And also there was pressure on them that if they were going to come together and do a show, they couldn't just pass the mic to one another. So we had to find a way to, you know, really, they worked really, really hard on how to integrate their performances and really create something special. And I think that the beauty of that show was in the details of how they transitioned from one thing to the next. And also, you know, they had this vision, they wanted it to be a cinematic adventure. So we had to shoot for that as well and edit, and, you know, we had just wrapped up 121 dates. And then when, you know, we had 4 from the Mrs. Carter show, and then we had 4 months to plan and go out on the run. So that one was that was a really big challenge, but, you know, yeah, we figured out how to get it done. The show went up.
Devin asks, could you see yourself doing something other than your current job, or is this the job that you knew you always wanted to do?
No, not in the music business. I really believe I am blessed to have one of the best jobs that you could probably have, and I don't take that for granted ever. And did I think that this is what? I don't think so. I don't know if I knew I would find my way here, but I see how it all connects and how I did get here. And and I think that's the other thing too. Like, when you always feel like you're supposed to be thinking what's next. You're supposed to be planning for, next level, next, whatever it is. And it was really pretty, incredible. A couple years ago, joining her in this to say, wow, like I don't think that what's next. I don't have to worry about what's next right now. I don't want to. Like. It's okay to just be grateful and be happy and to want to challenge myself within the daily job versus, putting the pressure on, career advancement in whatever lane you want to go to next. And, I guess that's, to go back to the original too, that, taking in the moments and being grateful is something too that I wish I had told myself earlier. Not always be so worried about, stay in your moment and do the best you can do in that, and trust that, if you keep your eyes open and you listen and you look around, your next things will come.
So that negates your middle of the night wake ups and going, oh, what if?
Oh no, I do that, but I do that more about specific things, like, oh my God, what if we're hacked and
so
everybody steals our. That's the stuff that wakes me up. I wake up going, oh my God, what am I going to do that we, little, more interpersonal office things. And
so if I were to sneak into the Callahan-Longo bedroom, would I find a pad and a pen by your bedside?
my iPhone, sadly.
Your iPhone?
Yeah.
Not sadly, it's reality.
It is. But yes, I don't keep the pad. I used to, but I
you
do.
did.
Now I just write it in the notepad if I wake up and think of something.
I
do keep an actual old school book, though. I do write things down with pen and paper, but I don't take it out at night. It's in the bag.
I always, when interviewing people, I was always inclined to hire someone when they told me they had that by their bedside,
Yeah.
because it meant they were driven and very self-motivated.
Yep. And I really do. I'm an old school. Like, I like to write it down on paper in a book and try to, I've tried to adapt to certain things, and I do try to make myself take notes there, but I like to write things down. You're looking at paper. I love it.
So Joelle says, what's been your favorite project that you've helped work on with Beyonce?
Definitely the album, this last album. The Beyonce album was one of the most proud moments. And yeah, I don't know if I could, we do other cool things, but that was pretty awesome.
Two questions of similar nature. One's from Jillian and the other's from Justin, but I was, as a woman who's had an incredible career over the years, what advice would you give someone who wanted to break into the music industry to try to maintain longevity? And the second part is, how do you keep yourself relevant? But first part is, what would be the advice you'd give to somebody who wanted to follow a career path similar to what you're doing today?
I guess I'd say, assess, why do you want to be in the music business? And are you really passionate for it? This is not a business of, if you think it's about glamour and all, it's not. I tell you, trust me. I had a conversation with someone the other day at, 2 in the morning and off a plane, lost bag. I'm like, isn't this glamorous? But it's, it's a passion business. If you don't love it, then it will make you miserable. So I guess I'd say that, and also network. In this business, educate, all of that is important, and bring your best smarts and game and differentiation if you can. But, get to know people. This is a business very much based on relationships, and every job and every step I've taken has been because, I had a previous relationship, or I was tenacious to, keep in touch, or set my eye on a goal. And this is more than most businesses, something that, relationships are really, really important to your future success. It is helpful when somebody knows you, can vouch for you, and that's how most people get hired.
There's something here that I didn't know, and I don't know, and you can maybe comment, or if you don't want to. Um, Carrie asked if that Beyonce is not a fan of Twitter.
She does not tweet. This is true.
So what she's asking is, then why don't you delete the account?
Because then somebody else will go on as Beyonce and say all kinds of crazy. So we don't. You have to keep it. We keep it, and but also social media is something that has to be authentic, and she very much enjoys Instagram, and we try to run a kind of a Facebook page that's a little more, it is what it is. It's very clear she's not writing it herself, but we write stories about her. It's a place for the fans to, congregate and talk to each other. But, Twitter is one of those weird things. And, if you can't actually engage in the dialogue, this is another one where I just think more often than not, people be mad. People are going to say mean things. And it's just not genuine to her. It's not, so why do it? If just felt like, we could have, sure, we could have hired somebody to tweet for, but why? I think people see through that pretty clearly. And, my belief is that if you're going to engage in social media, you should be interested in it, or, want to serve it. Like I said, she's much more about pictures representing her life and not talking about it. That's the other thing. And, she's become a lot more open over the years, and that's come with, comfort. But I think she also is very careful that there's a piece of her and her life and her personal life that should be hers. And it is very difficult to have that distinction. And you live, you make a choice when you decide to go into the entertainment business. You give up a lot of your rights to privacy. And then, she understands that, but then it would be a little, you can't, not comment and then, be on Twitter. Just didn't feel right for her. But again, there's a million. If you go right now in Google, I guarantee you'll find 100 accounts that somehow say Beyonce or Beyonce Knowles or whatever that aren't her, that aren't us.
The other question Carrie posed, how do you tell Beyonce, an artist of that stature, no? Without a damaging relationship.
It's funny. She appreciates no, It's always been, we hire, our staff is super diverse. And when I say that, I mean every walk of life, every shape, form, color, persuasion, you name it, and on purpose. She is actually she likes opinions, and she likes you to have input, and she always wants to be challenged, because she also knows too that, she may not be able to be out about and checking out all the latest culture everywhere. And you don't need a bunch of people running around telling you yes, and that you're great and that everything you do is perfect. And, my job is, ultimately I have the job of when the team thinks it's a bad idea or something is a no or can't get it done, I got to say no. But it goes back to what I talked about before. That's always kind of been, I'd rather just tell you the truth. And, in a relationship, especially in a management-artist relationship, at its core, the loyalty and the trust is everything. And the day you violate that, it changes the whole trajectory of your relationship. And so from the first day, 8 years ago, that was my commitment, that I always needed to tell her the truth, that I always needed to be forthcoming. And she was always very direct that if, I needed to say what I thought and felt, or why am I there? She doesn't need to pay people to sit around to, tell her she's great. That's dumb.
This reminds me of a story of a young man who worked for MPL Music, McCartney's publishing company. And Paul would call him into his office and play a rough track and say, "What do you think?" Well, if you say it's not very good, what the hell do you know? I've written more hits. And if you say, wow, it's fantastic, good, go get it played on the radio. So it's a tricky no-win situation.
Well, I think too, it's interesting is the art is one thing too, I mean, it's so subjective.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. And I try to be really, I don't comment on, the art is her domain. That's what she does.
Right.
My job is to, if she asks me my opinion, happy to give it. But for the most part, I trust that she's got that locked. Then what do you want me, how do
Facilitate.
we line up, how do we facilitate? What do you want to do? What are your, your goals, your dreams, what do you want to accomplish? And let's figure out how to get there. And, I think sometimes too, if an idea hatches and, something isn't right, then you say your piece about that. But at some point, I think she's earned the right that the art is hers. And so I try not to, but you're right. That's a catch-22.
Yeah.
And there are artists who will mess with you. They'll want to,
Right.
see how you'll react. But be careful, but most artists, like their musical creation, that's their babies.
Right.
So I don't want to, you really want to tell somebody your baby's ugly? If you don't like it, that's, it's okay, but I think you should be respectful about how you approach that subject.
Especially if you're a salaried employee.
Yeah, well, yeah. But in general, I think it's a
Right.
respect for,
Right.
what they do.
All right, we're getting some personal questions here. For example, Michael says, how do you balance out your social life with the music industry while still having a good work ethic?
Oof. The that is always the battle. There's never enough time. I think for me, work is a big part of my life. I'm married, and luckily to a man who's got a lot of patience, but also very independent too. So he's really into music, really into sports, does a lot of things with, that he'll do with his friends or on his own without me because I'm working. But there comes a point too where I learned, I used to be, crazy, like having to check the BlackBerry all the time. And I had to come to a point where I really, at the end of a long day, if it's 11 o'clock, it's okay to put it down. If it's really important, someone's going to call. And if they don't, then shame on you for just emailing and not, if it's really urgent. But you have to, to be healthy, I have to find a way to shut off for a little while and, and focus on family, friends. And I guess I do my best to focus on the relationships that are really important to me and try to find the time and make the time to do that. But it's an effort, it really is. Again, the music business is kind of a lifestyle. If you're looking for 9 to 5, it's not for you. It's not set up that way. And especially in management, it can be 24/7. It depends on, it ebbs and flows. When you're in the middle of something and you're on delivery, you may not be able to sleep for 3 days. But then, when you're freed up, you may be able to, take off for a week.
Right.
We gave, we had been 2 years, honestly. We started with when she returned from her pregnancy, and we did the show at Revel. We started there and went from that to Super Bowl, then to the tour, then to the album, then to, so we did 2 years pretty much nonstop, no break. And it was really like looking around at the holidays, she came in one day and we were talking, she said, I really think we should give everybody a month off. And I said, I think that's the best idea I've heard. And, we got to give everybody a break. I'm looking, how do you keep people motivated? They were exhausted. They were tapped of all creative, anything you could expect from people. It was a lot. It was exciting. It was, great. We found a way to wave from one thing to the next. But they were tired, and so we did. We closed our offices for a month over the holidays, and it was really incredible. I would do it again if we could.
Marla wants to know what's the best piece of advice you were ever given in the industry, and who gave it to you?
Well, like I said before, my mentor, her name was Jenny McCann. She was my general manager when I was in radio in Boston 20 plus years ago. And, like I said, she gave me the advice of, it was really kind of simple. She gave me the do what you say you're going to do. More importantly, say what you can't. Return every phone call. And just be nice. Be a good person. And she said, and it really is that theory too, like, today's, who you meet today as an intern could be the president of something the next day. And again, but it isn't always about that too. It's about just respect for treat people how you like to be treated. And, and know that you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and be proud of who you are and what you've done. So she gifted, I didn't even realize till much later how lucky I was to have that. Because it's, it's not complicated, if you break it down, but it sounds simple, but they really were. I mean, I've benefited greatly from all of those things. And the funny thing is the return every call thing, I got to tell you, the busier you get, the harder it is to do that, to keep up on things.
Yep.
But every once in a while, I'll look at a call sheet, and I might call you 3 months later. But I will try to call back every person. And oftentimes it's like, I'm really sorry. And, you got caught.
I didn't have to wait 3 months to tell her to come here, guys.
No.
She was very prompt.
I try to keep on top of it.
Very
There's
good.
less phone calls now. It's returning every email that's becoming the hard thing.
Right. It's the emails, right. Cole posed the question that you once were quoted as saying, if you aren't here for the passion and the ride, then you'd be miserable. Is there a time when you were not enjoying what you were doing?
Yes.
Aside from right now.
Yeah, no. I got to a point when I was working in the music, in the record business, doing radio promotion, and I wasn't happy. And I knew I wasn't happy. I wasn't being fulfilled. I found myself really not being as excited to get up every day, and I didn't want to go to, do. So I looked for a different opportunity, and I was, glad again, talked to a few friends. Had a friend who worked at MTV. She knew Columbia was looking for someone in video and TV. And it was like I knew all the skills I had in promotion. I knew how to do the job, I just didn't know the medium. So, but I felt confident that I can learn that. I mean, I get it a little, but, promotion is kind of promotion. So can I figure out how to apply it there? And I did. So it was, time to take a shift, and I was lucky to be able to do that.
And following up on that, Andrew poses the question, you think you'll stay with this company until you retire?
I hope so. I hope that we'll want to grow and evolve together. And like I said, to work in an artist-owned, free environment, with the ability, if we can dream it, we can do it. Like, I can't think of a better situation than that in this business. So, sitting here today, I hope so.
Business question posed by Alan Cohn, that in 2013, Beyonce signed a publishing deal globally with Warner Chappell. He was just curious what made that, why that company as opposed to some of the other publishing companies?
John Platt, who went over.
So people.
The people. We went with, who is now the president of Warner Chappell. And he's been her publisher for about 10 years now. So that was very much a relationship move.
So in this industry, it's about relationships and people.
Yes.
Bianca says, what was the most important thing you learned working in the music industry? Maybe you already answered that.
It's hard. There's a lot of important things. But, oof.
Hard to hone it down to one.
It is.
Yeah.
It's hard to, there's so many things, I guess it's, understand it's a subjective business. And,
Well, I think you said it earlier, be nice to people.
Yeah,
Because that applies across the board in every situation.
I think it does.
Yeah, I think you're right. Daniel said, as the music business continues to change and morph and evolve, what was the greatest innovation you've witnessed, and how did it contribute to the change? Just want to know what you've observed was the greatest innovation in the business since you've been.
Jury's out on if it's the greatest, but it's definitely the biggest is the internet. To be, working in an industry and watch something come along and absolutely just change everything. I really believe that they're going to look back on this period and they will do books, and there'll be, all kinds of studies done on how this changed, it absolutely changed a business. What's interesting, though, is the music business isn't that old. If you think about when it was actually formulated into a business, by historic there's always been music, but when they officially made it a business, like you said, back in the day when Ahmet and Turk and the whole, think about it, that was still this century.
Yeah.
Well, not now, but you know what I mean, like just still latter,
Right.
not steeped in hundreds and hundreds of years. But I definitely think that the internet is definitely the biggest thing, the biggest shift.
All right. Valerie wanted to know about your experience working on the HBO documentary Life is But a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to share about that experience?
Sure. That was really interesting because she had concepted that she wanted to do the documentary, and it was time. She felt that, she understood that everybody really wanted to learn more and hear more, and she was like at a point where she was comfortable doing that, but she said, okay, well, let's do it ourselves, and then, I tell my story my way. And but I'll tell you, she challenged every single one of us. Don't let me off. You are to question me. You are to challenge me. If you feel I'm not being honest, call me out on it. She said, I don't, when you're doing your, when you're producing your own documentary, to stay objective was important to her. If I'm going to do this, I wouldn't want it, I want it to be right. And then I had to go sell the film. So I had to go to Hollywood, and it was really fascinating going to all it because we thought we might go to, the theatrical release. But when it all came down to it, HBO felt like the right home because they would embrace it for what it was. And they gave her the freedom to, kind of create that. And from the minute we spoke, we knew they were going to market it right. And, we went into it knowing they do a great job. You can't have better confidence that at least we know it's going to be marketed properly. Everything else will be if people like it or they don't. That much is up for grabs. But the documentary was an interesting turning point to see her learn to just, to kind of be more open about herself. And I really thought it was wonderful for people to see the other side, because she is funny and she's charming and she's all those things that, you don't necessarily see when she pops up on stage and everybody and she's that beast of a performer.
I'm fascinated by the spread of an array of things that you can get involved with her, whether it's a documentary or music publishing or cross promotion with brands and touring, recording and video. Is there anything on the horizon that has not touched yet that you are looking at or you would consider, or is it a book? I mean, I can't imagine what she hasn't done yet, but there's got to be things.
There's definitely, like I said, in the children's space, there's things we've never done. So
there's more and more opportunities for you as well as for her to spread your wings. And you're, you paid a lot of money to go to college. Now you're almost getting an education as you go out there, because you're doing things that in certain cases you've never done before. Yeah.
And that's why I said, too, don't ever be afraid to say when you don't know something. Like if I don't know how to do something, or we're endeavoring into something we've never done, I look for somebody I know, or who either knows the answers or can give me some guidance, or who can connect me to somebody who does. Because, you can figure things out to a certain extent, but not knowing what you're about to do is a very dangerous, very, overwhelming thing. And, but yeah, it is exciting that I get to learn and do different things, and that's always fun,
As opposed to picking up the phone and calling a radio station every day and saying, could you play this?
Yes.
Or not? In the remaining time, are there any spontaneous questions anybody has they want to ask? Please feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, I'll continue. All right, well, so Jesse wanted to know, yes, sir.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
I get the mic and you guys don't, right?
I don't know if is it working?
No, it's going to be recorded.
It's
Oh.
gonna be. I just wanted to say it's a pleasure to see you here. When I first came in, I had the question about the publishing and the business side, but seeing you in person and hearing you talk in person, I could see how much your vibe could feed from her, and vice versa. How the two of you could really be even more powerful together. That she's throwing things at you, you're throwing things at her. And as a management, it seems like your life is so up in hers. Do you feel like sometimes you're losing your side of your life because you have to deal so much as a manager believing in what she does, even though, of course, you have to be so strong to support her, and that's what a manager does.
Right.
You know, your
Well,
life gets entwined so much.
it does. I mean, it absolutely does. And, it's cool. I mean, I love being the woman behind the woman, if you will. But I don't, again, I'm lucky that I never aspired to do what she does. She doesn't aspire to do what I do. So we have two lanes. And, I don't know. I mean, in the business aspect, like, I'm very much me, and I'm comfortable there. I'm lucky. I don't like the attention. So I'm happy to be like, all eyes over there. And I'll be over here just, doing what needs
Goes back to your high school not wanting to perform.
Correct. And learning that and knowing that. And it's funny because, we work in a business where so many people on the business, they
They think they're the
maybe
stars.
didn't succeed. Yeah. And it's not, it's just not the facts.
How many people do we know in the business who have their own publicists?
Yes. So, I think that that's about just, I guess you have to be comfortable in the role of being the support and knowing who you are. And I know the value that I bring to it, that we are, I'm part of a really awesome team. And it takes a village. And she'd be the first too. And that's what I think. I happen to work for an artist too, who has great appreciation for all of us who work so hard and support her.
She can't do it all herself.
Absolutely not.
Matthew asked this question, I think we've answered it, but do you get to provide any creative input to Beyonce regarding her music?
Yeah. She, like I said, she's very open. She loves suggestion. We don't, when she goes into the studio to record, that's her domain. But she likes to work with lots of different people. She likes different opinions. She's like a mad scientist too, which is funny. She'll like a piece of this and she'll think it goes with a piece of that, and makes the publishing admin crazy town. But but it's her. But yes, she's very open. There's many ideas, for businesses or creative something that has started with hey, why don't you try that or do this, or what do you think about this? And she'll always she's got to put her kind of head around it and how it fits her and if it does or doesn't. But she's super open to input, and I think that's what makes our team successful.
Okay. I think we should say thank you for coming here tonight.
Thank
and
you for
giving
having
us your
me.
time.
Thank you.
I did promise she would get home and see her husband at a decent hour, so she's going to want to leave quickly. But if any of you have a quick question, I'm sure she'll stay here for a few minutes and answer you if you have something you want to say. Otherwise, thank you, and we'll see you
Thank you for
next
having
week.
me.